Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to help you get up to speed on complex topics fast. And today, we're tackling something that trips up even really advanced English speakers. It's that whole world of English humor, and maybe even trickier, sarcasm.
Yeah, it really is a communication minefield, isn't it? It's not just about the words. It's this whole other layer, implied meaning. And if you've ever been, confused or even felt a bit offended by something someone said, only to find out later, oh, they were joking. Well, you're definitely not alone. Sarcasm is like the final boss of social and cultural understanding in English, I think.
Absolutely. And that's basically our mission for this deep dive. We want to build you like a decoder ring for this stuff. We need to unpack all those little signals, the cultural rules underneath, and the practical ways you can get better at spotting sarcasm.
Right.
And maybe even using it yourself without causing chaos.
Right.
So why is it so hard? I mean, fundamentally, it's because the meaning you're supposed to get. It's often the exact opposite of the words being said. That's semantic incongruity.
Exactly. And that difficulty just skyrockets when you lose the usual clues. Like, think about texting or emails, Slack.
Yeah, no tone of voice.
No facial expression, nothing. The risk of getting it wrong goes way, way up. So our goal here is to help you navigate all that. Avoid those potentially awkward or even damaging misunderstandings.
And avoid accidentally offending someone or taking offense when none was meant. That's key.
Right.
Okay, let's break down the basics first. So sarcasm, at its heart, it's saying the opposite of what you mean, right?
Right.
But often with exaggeration to really hammer home the difference between the words and reality.
Yeah, it's like a deliberate, obvious lie that's actually pointing towards the truth. It uses that contrast.
And the biggest trap, especially if you're learning or just, mentally overloaded, is taking it literally. Your brain just hears the words and processes those, ignoring everything else around them.
Yeah, the context just gets missed. There's a classic example that happens all the time in workplaces. Imagine someone new on the team. Maybe English isn't their first language, or they're just overwhelmed. Picture this. They are absolutely buried. Papers everywhere, phone ringing, multiple screens flashing, total chaos, clearly stressed out.
The picture of someone not having a relaxed time.
Exactly. And the boss walks past, sees the situation, doesn't want to interrupt properly, but wants to acknowledge it. So they say, maybe deadpan? Wow, looking very relaxed there. Bit quiet for you today. Something like that.
Okay. And the new person, focused on the words relaxed, quiet, maybe panics a bit.
Totally. They think, oh, no, my boss thinks I'm slacking off, so they jump in with, no, I promise I'm incredibly busy. I'm just very organized.
And they've completely missed the actual message.
Completely. The boss wasn't actually asking if they were busy. The boss was using sarcasm to say, I see you're swamped. I get it. It was meant as acknowledgement, maybe even a bit of solidarity.
But the literal words contradicted the obvious visual chaos.
Precisely. And the listener missed that contradiction. Context isn't just helpful here. It's like 90% of the message.
And it's not just about missing a joke and feeling a bit silly. It can cause real problems, real misunderstandings, real offense. Like that story about Mark and the developer.
Oh yeah, that's a painful one, but so illustrative. So you've got this developer, right? He's been working like crazy, nights, weekends, tons of caffeine, trying to fix some massive system crash. He looks awful. Exhausted, stressed, miserable.
In there.
We all have. And his colleague, Mark, wants to show some support, maybe lighten the mood a tiny bit. He walks over, maybe puts a hand on his shoulder for a second, looks at the mess and says, completely straight-faced,
Yeah.
well, looks like you're having an absolute blast.
Oof. Okay, I can see where this is going. The developer hears absolute blast.
And because he's stressed, sleep-deprived, and probably hypersensitive, he takes it literally, as mockery, as someone making light of his suffering.
Instead of hearing the intended, wow, this looks rough, I feel for you.
Exactly. So instead of a chuckle or a weary smile, Mark gets an explosion. The developer just unloads, ranting about the stupid system, the lack of sleep, how awful everything is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Mark was just stunned. He meant well, tried to connect, but the sarcasm combined with the stress just backfired spectacularly, turned intended support into conflict.
It really highlights why understanding this stuff matters so much.
Yeah.
And speaking of how it works, we need to talk about those little words, the qualifiers.
Oh, yes, the intensifiers.
Like very, really so, how they get used in this like upside down way.
Right. The overemphasis is the clue. When someone uses very or so with this unusual weight or a weird tone on a word where it doesn't quite fit the positive meaning, it makes the literal statement sound absurd. It forces you to think, wait, that can't be right.
Okay, give me an example.
All right, picture this. Someone, let's call her Janice, has just dropped a whole tray of coffees right before a big client meeting. Huge mess, everyone's stressed. The manager walks up, looks at the puddle and says, maybe slowly drawing it out. Oh, that's so helpful, Janice. Really, just so constructive right now.
Got it. The exaggerated Sue is the giveaway. Nobody would actually say it like that if they meant it was genuinely helpful. They'd just say, thanks, or maybe nothing.
Exactly. The exaggeration signals the opposite meaning. This is incredibly unhelpful. And think about that family story, the Thanksgiving turkey one.
Oh, the unsalted turkey, yeah.
Classic. Hours of work, beautiful burr, but someone forgot the salt. Completely bland. Everyone's trying to be polite, chewing sadly.
Awkward.
Super awkward. Then the uncle, maybe known for his dry wit, takes a big bite, chews thoughtfully, puts down his fork and declares, deadpan. My word. This is, without question, the most delicious, flavorful turkey I believe I have ever tasted. The seasoning is just exquisite.
Huh. Okay, so the over-the-top praise, without question, exquisite. When everyone knows it's bland, that's the sarcasm.
Precisely. The sheer absurdity of the praise highlights the reality of the blandness. And crucially, it breaks the tension. Everyone gets it, they laugh, the disaster becomes a shared joke. It's bonding through acknowledging the awkward truth, ironically.
Right.
Okay, so we know sarcasm plays with contradiction, but sometimes it's not as obvious as, a spilled tray or a saltless turkey. How do we spot it then? We need active clues. Let's start with the voice.
Right. Tone. You said earlier tone is king.
Right.
What specific things should we be listening for?
Well, you're often listening for extremes that sound a bit fake or deliberately unusual. On one side, you've got that really flat, monotone, almost robotic delivery, the classic deadpan.
Right.
Very little pitch change. It often signals dryness, maybe annoyance, or just that the speaker isn't emotionally invested in the positive words they're saying.
Okay, that's one extreme. What's the other?
Yeah. The other is exaggeratedly cheerful, way too enthusiastic. Maybe the pitch goes unusually high or it sounds overly bubbly. It's so over-the-top positive that it signals, I definitely don't feel this happy about whatever I'm talking about.
But what about the real pros? The masters of deadpan who deliver something potentially cutting with zero expression, zero vocal change. That seems almost impossible to detect.
It's definitely the hardest. That's where you have to listen really closely to tiny things, intonation patterns within words, or even the velocity of their speech.
So,
Like maybe one syllable is held just a fraction too long, or there's a slight upward lilt at the end of a statement that should be flat. Even tiny deviations can be clues. Think about that student who secretly aced a hard test. They might say, oh, that test was awful, but maybe they say it really fast, almost rushed, breathless.
so the speed contradicts the negative word awful. It leaks their real feeling, excitement, or relief.
Exactly. That little mismatch between the words and the delivery, even a subtle one, is often where the sarcastic meaning hides.
Okay, so we're listening for vocal extremes or subtle mismatches. What about beyond the voice? The nonverbal stuff. The body language.
The secret code. This is crucial for confirmation. You're looking for a mismatch between the face and the words. Again, classic signs. The slight, maybe one-sided eyebrow raise, that's a big one. Sometimes called the sarcastic flash.
Okay.
Or a quick eye roll. Sometimes it's really fast, you barely catch it. Or a smirk, that little half smile that appears and disappears quickly. It might technically be a micro-expression of contempt or amusement leaking through.
The body betraying the poker face.
Pretty much. The face is saying one thing, the words another.
And we have to mention air quotes, right? Even though they feel a bit dated sometimes.
Yeah. They're a bit cliche, but they are a very clear signal. When someone does the little finger wiggles, they're visually showing you, I don't actually endorse these words I'm saying. They're putting distance between themselves and the literal meaning. It flags the word or phrase as ironic or, not to be taken seriously.
So for a learner, picking up these visual cues is another vital layer on top of just the words.
Absolutely, especially in face-to-face conversations.
Okay, so we have voice, we have body language.
Yeah.
What if those are still ambiguous? We need context checks, right?
Yes. Two big ones, plausibility and relationship.
Plausibility first. What does that mean?
Basically, you just ask yourself, Does this statement make any logical sense in this situation? Is it even remotely believable? So if someone's stuck in gridlock traffic, rain pouring down, and they sigh dramatically, perfection, this is exactly how I wanted to spend my afternoon.
Right. The situation is miserable. The statement claims perfection. It's not plausible. So sarcasm.
Unless maybe there are researchers studying traffic patterns and actually are finding it fascinating, which leads us to the next check.
Familiarity. Knowing the person.
Exactly. Sarcasm often works like an inside joke. It relies on shared knowledge or history. If you know your friend absolutely despises traffic jams, then their "this is perfect" comment is instantly understood as sarcasm. Your knowledge of them provides the context.
Like the example of the friend who's always late.
Perfect. If they finally arrive and you say, "Wow, setting a new record for punctuality today."
That's only funny. Or sarcastic, because you both know their track record is the opposite of punctual. It's the shared understanding.
And that shared history is often what lets sarcasm be a bonding thing. It shows closeness. But, and this is important, look at the pattern. If it's someone you don't know well, and they consistently use remarks like that, maybe seeming to put you down.
Even if the tone sounds playful.
Right. If the pattern feels negative, it might not be bonding. It could be passive aggression or even just mean-spiritedness. The relationship history changes how you interpret the intent.
So it's like being a detective. You're gathering clues from the words, the voice, the face, the situation, and your history with the person, all at once.
That's a great way to put it. It's holistic observation. And that holistic approach, it becomes even more essential when we factor in culture, because sarcasm is definitely not a universal language tool.
Right. Some cultures value directness much more.
Exactly. In places where being very clear and direct is the norm, or where, saving face and maintaining group harmony is super important, sarcasm can just seem weird or rude or confusing. Like, why wouldn't you just say what you mean? It can even feel a bit dishonest or damaging to a relationship.
Okay, but then you have cultures like, say, the British, who are practically famous for it. Dry wit, irony, understatement. Why is it so prevalent there?
Well, a lot of it seems tied to this idea of emotional reserve. British culture, traditionally at least, tends to shy away from big displays of emotion. So humor, especially understatement, becomes a way to cope with or comment on strong feelings or difficult situations without being overly dramatic.
Understatement, that's saying less than you mean, right? The opposite of the exaggeration we talked about earlier.
Precisely. It's downplaying something significant. So if their house is flooding, they might wryly observe, seems we've got a bit of water coming in.
Instead of, oh my God, we're drowning.
Right. Or if it's absolutely freezing outside, they might say, ooh, it's a bit nippy out today. That massive understatement creates this shared humorous recognition of how bad things actually are without needing a big emotional outburst. It's acknowledgement through reserve.
That makes sense. And given this cultural tendency towards indirectness, it's probably important to clarify the difference between irony and sarcasm. They seem really close, especially in British humor.
They are very close, and sarcasm often uses irony, but there's a key difference. Irony, fundamentally, is about a contrast between expectation and reality. It can just happen, like a fire station burning down. That's situational irony. Nobody intended it, it's just a weird, unexpected outcome.
Okay, so irony can exist without a person deliberately creating it.
Right. Sarcasm, on the other hand, is always intentional. It's a verbal tool someone uses on purpose, usually to mock or criticize or be funny in a biting way. So, back to the clumsy friend spilling paint. Saying, nice job, uses the irony of the situation, they did a bad job, to deliver a sarcastic comment. The sarcasm is the speaker's deliberate, mocking use of that irony.
Got it. Sarcasm requires intent from a speaker. Irony can just be the situation itself.
You nailed it. And in that British context, using sarcasm, especially playful teasing, is often a sign of bonding.
How so?
It signals comfort and trust. If someone starts gently teasing you with dry, sarcastic comments, it often means they feel comfortable enough with you to risk a little ambiguity. They trust you'll get the joke and understand the underlying affection.
So it's like saying, I like you enough to mess with you a bit, and I know you won't take it the wrong way.
That's a perfect summary. It's a marker of acceptance into a more informal, closer relationship circle.
Interesting. But then that cultural mechanism changes again when we look at something like self-deprecating humor, right? Making fun of yourself.
Yeah, that varies a lot culturally. In the U.S., for example, putting yourself down gently is often seen as relatable, humble. It makes you seem approachable, like you don't take yourself too seriously. But in some other cultures, maybe where projecting competence and confidence is more socially valued, Constantly making fun of yourself could be interpreted quite differently.
Ow.
It might be seen as actual low self-esteem or a lack of confidence. People might not laugh, they might feel awkward, or even think you genuinely need help or reassurance. The humor doesn't land because the cultural expectation is different.
Which brings us to the idea of humor that just doesn't travel well.
Yeah.
Untranslatable humor.
Oh, absolutely. So much humor relies on shared cultural baggage. Specific historical events, political figures, wordplay like puns that only work in one language.
Yeah, puns are impossible sometimes.
Totally. Or jokes that rely on specific sounds or rhymes. You can translate the meaning of the words, but the humor itself, the thing that makes it funny, just evaporates because the cultural context or the linguistic trick is gone.
So really understanding a culture's humor means understanding a lot more than just vocabulary. It's about the shared knowledge, the history, the values.
Exactly. It's deep cultural literacy.
Okay, so given all this complexity, the cultural nuances, that fine line between a joke and an insult, when we talk about sarcasm in a professional setting, like the workplace, we probably need to advise extreme caution, right?
Oh, absolutely. Extreme caution is the name of the game. The default should be very careful. The basic rule is pretty straightforward. Think about hierarchy and familiarity. You can get away with way more with a colleague you've known for years and joke around with than you can with a brand new client or your boss's boss.
Yep.
You have to know your audience and you have to understand the specific culture of that particular workplace. Some offices are more informal, others are very buttoned up.
I definitely made that mistake early in my career.
Yeah.
Tried to be funny and make a sarcastic comment about a meeting running along with my new boss.
How did that go?
Not well. It landed with a thud.
Yeah.
Led to a rather awkward chat later about professionalism and respecting people's time. The relationship just wasn't there yet. I hadn't earned the right, so to speak.
That's a perfect illustration. It's risky. Although sometimes sarcasm is used in the workplace almost strategically.
How do you mean?
Well, because it allows people to offer criticism or express disagreement without being overtly confrontational, which can be useful in places where direct negative feedback is frowned upon or penalized.
Ah, right. The classic corporate non-insult insult.
Exactly. So instead of saying, "This report is terrible and makes no sense," someone might say, with maybe a slightly strained smile,
Let me guess. Well, that's certainly innovative.
"Bingo. Innovative," or "That's a very creative approach." The word sounds positive, but the context, the tone, maybe a slight hesitation, tells you it actually means this is bad or I don't like this.
It's a way to deliver the negative feedback while maintaining plausible deniability. I just said it was innovative.
Precisely. It's shielded criticism, which leads us neatly into maybe the most annoying form, passive-aggressive sarcasm.
Ah, yes. The little digs disguised as observations.
It's designed to needle you, to put you slightly off balance. Like a colleague saying, "Oh, you're actually leaving on time today. How unusual."
Or, that's a very interesting choice of tie for the big presentation.
Exactly. The interesting isn't genuine curiosity, it's loaded. It implies that tie is weird, bad, and appropriate. It's aggression wrapped in superficially polite language.
So, if you're on the receiving end of that, how do you handle it? You don't want to just ignore it, maybe, but you also don't want to blow up or seem defensive.
Right, you need a strategy. The first step is internal. Don't let it get under your skin. Don't give them the emotional reaction they might be hoping for. Then you have a few options for responding. One is just neutral acceptance.
Like,
If they make the comment about your tie, just a simple, calm, "Thanks, I like it." No defensiveness, just deflects the implied criticism, shuts it down.
Okay. What else?
Option 2 is forcing clarification. This is a bit more assertive. You ask a neutral question that makes them spell out their hidden meaning or back down. So you could ask calmly, "Interesting. What do you mean by interesting?" Or, "Are you suggesting there's an issue with my tie choice?"
Puts the ball back in their court. They either have to admit they were being critical or quickly backtrack with, "Oh no, I just hadn't seen one like it."
Exactly. And a third option, if the situation allows, is sometimes to use humor yourself. Maybe self-deprecating humor. It shows you heard the jab, but you're not bothered by it, and you can reclaim control. But that depends heavily on the context.
Okay, those are good tactics. Now, shifting gears slightly, what happens when all this moves online? Emails, messages, written sarcasm. That feels even riskier.
It's a minefield 2.0. Because you lose everything. No tone of voice, no facial expressions, no body language. All those clues we rely on are just gone.
So the chance of someone misunderstanding your witty comment is huge.
Astronomical, especially in professional emails. We try to compensate, right? We use emojis, the winky face, the upside-down smiley says, maybe all caps for emphasis or extra punctuation. That's just what I needed.
But even those can be ambiguous. Is that exclamation mark genuine excitement or frustrated yelling?
Exactly. It's so easy to get wrong. The safest bet, honestly, particularly in work emails or communicating with people you don't know extremely well, is just don't do it.
Stick to clarity.
Stick to clarity. If you need humor, find a safer way. Maybe a light, clearly positive, self-deprecating joke if appropriate. But generally, directness is better than risking offense or confusion.
It's interesting, isn't it, that this is such a hard problem even for computers?
It really is. AI researchers are pouring tons of effort into teaching language models to detect sarcasm in text. They analyze word choice, sentence structure, how emojis are used. The very fact that it's a major challenge for sophisticated AI highlights just how much complex processing our brains are doing instantly when we hear sarcasm in person. It's not simple.
Okay, so we've thoroughly dissected the problem, the nuances, the risks. Let's talk solutions. For someone listening who wants to get better at this, what are the practical strategies? How do you practice?
Practice comes down to exposure, really. Intentional exposure. You need to immerse yourself in environments where this kind of communication happens and actively pay attention. So watch TV shows and movies that are known for it. Think about mockumentaries like The Office of the UK version is brilliant for dry, awkward, sarcastic humor.
Right, the humor often comes from the unsaid things, the reactions.
Exactly, or classic sitcoms, Friends, for instance. The character Chandler Bing is practically the poster child for sarcasm.
He really is. Why is watching someone like Chandler useful, specifically?
Because his sarcasm isn't just random jokes. It's usually a defense mechanism. He uses it to deflect, to avoid showing vulnerability. So when you watch him, don't just listen to the funny line. Watch how Matthew Perry delivers it. The timing, the slight look away, the way his posture might change right after. You're learning to connect the sarcastic language to the underlying feeling or intent. It's about seeing the shield.
That's a great point. It's not just words, it's the whole package. And we need to apply that observation in real life too, right?
Absolutely. Make a conscious effort in your daily conversations. Really watch people's faces when they speak. Listen for those subtle shifts in tone we talked about. And start noticing patterns in people you interact with regularly. Does your colleague always use dry wit? Does your friend rely on self-deprecating humor? Knowing their baseline makes it easier to spot when they deviate into sarcasm.
Okay, so observe, immerse, look for patterns. But what happens when you inevitably mess up? You miss the sarcasm, or maybe you interpret something literally that was meant as a joke. How do you handle that moment?
First thing, don't beat yourself up. It happens to everyone, even native speakers. Missing sarcasm is part of the learning curve. The most important thing is, if you're unsure, it's almost always better to ask for clarification than to guess wrong and potentially react inappropriately.
Okay, but how do you ask without sounding accusatory? Like, were you just being sarcastic to me? That sounds a bit confrontational.
Yeah, you want softer phrasing. Focus on your own understanding, not their intent. So instead of, are you being sarcastic? Maybe try something like, sorry, did I understand that right? Were you serious? Or more informal, hang on, are you pulling my leg?
Pulling my leg. That's a good idiom. It frames it as potential teasing, not necessarily malice.
Exactly. Or even, I want to make sure I'm getting this right. Could you clarify what you meant? It puts the onus on your need for clarity, not their potential sarcasm.
What about really formal situations, though? Like a big meeting where interrupting to ask, are you serious? Might be super awkward.
Good question. In those high-stakes formal settings, direct clarification might not be feasible. Your best bet there is usually a neutral, non-committal response. Acknowledge you heard them without agreeing or disagreeing with the content yet. Something like, okay, thank you for that perspective, or that's an interesting point, I'll consider that.
Buys you time.
Buys you time. You can then try to figure out the real meaning later, maybe by observing their subsequent actions or discreetly checking with a trusted colleague afterwards. Did you think she was serious when she said X?
Makes sense. Let's dig a bit deeper into the why again. We mentioned Chandler using sarcasm as a shield. Can we elaborate on that? Sarcasm as a defense mechanism.
Yeah, it's a really important layer. Often sarcasm isn't just about being funny or critical, it's about protecting the speaker. It can be used to deflect attention away from genuine feelings, maybe anxiety or insecurity, or to guard against criticism before it even happens.
Like the preemptive strike.
Exactly. Someone achieves something they're actually proud of, but they're nervous about how it will be received, or they don't want to seem arrogant. So they announce it, then immediately undercut it with sarcasm. Well, I finally finished that report. Only cost me my sanity and possibly a major organ, but hey, it's done.
Right. They make the joke about the cost or the flaws themselves, so if someone else points it out, it's like, yeah, I know, I already said that. It disarms potential criticism.
It controls the narrative. It shows self-awareness. Maybe it protects them from feeling vulnerable if someone doesn't praise their work. Understanding this psychological function helps you see beyond the surface words.
Definitely adds depth. Okay, before we wrap up, let's quickly define a few of those idioms related to humor and joking, just to make sure everyone's clear. We already mentioned pulling your leg.
Right. Pulling your leg just means teasing or joking, kidding around, not serious. Then there's a real card. If someone calls a person a real card, it means they're funny, amusing, maybe a bit eccentric or mischievous. If people are just having a laugh, it simply means they're joking, having fun, and the situation shouldn't be taken too seriously. It signals lightheartedness.
Got it.
And tongue-in-cheek. This is a great one. If a comment is made tongue-in-cheek, it means it's ironic or playfully sarcastic, not meant to be taken literally or maliciously. It signals humorous intent behind potentially serious-sounding words.
Useful vocabulary to have in your toolkit for navigating these social waters. Hashtag outro. Wow, okay. This has been quite the deep dive, hasn't it? We've really unpacked a lot about this hidden layer of English. So to quickly recap the big takeaways for you. Sarcasm is complex. It hinges on that contradiction, often uses exaggeration, and absolutely relies on context, plus the speaker's delivery, that tone, the body language, and your understanding of the person, and maybe even the culture. Those are your main tools for figuring it out.
And probably our biggest piece of practical advice, summing it all up, when you're not sure, especially in important situations, just err on the side of caution. Being clear and direct is almost always safer than trying to be witty and risking a major misunderstanding or causing offense. You don't have to use sarcasm to connect with people. Sometimes simple, clear communication, maybe with some safe observational humor or a well-placed, self-deprecating joke, is the much better route. Clarity over cleverness, perhaps.
That's really solid advice. Okay, here's a final thought we want to leave you with, something to chew on. Think about humor and sarcasm, not just as language quirks, but as a kind of window. A window into how different cultures, different personalities see the world, what they value, how they cope.
Yeah, that's profound.
By paying attention to what people find funny, how they tease, what they use irony for, you're learning so much more than just vocabulary or grammar. You're gaining real cultural insight. Deep literacy.
It's about understanding the people behind the language.
Exactly. So your journey to being truly well-informed, it continues every time you understand a joke, or even when you figure out why something isn't funny to someone else. It continues through laughter and understanding that laughter.
Well said. Hopefully this discussion gives you a bit more confidence navigating those sometimes tricky waters.
I hope so too. Thanks for diving in with us. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are attempting to decode something pretty fundamental, but also incredibly complex. Yeah. Humor. It seems simple, right? Jokes make us laugh. But beneath that, it's this whole world of like social codes, linguistic tricks, and let's be honest, potential disaster if a joke goes wrong.
Oh, absolutely. It's such an essential thing to get into because humor, well, it's really the glue in so many interactions. It's how we connect, how we build rapport, signal cleverness, even, navigate tricky situations.
It's so slippery.
Totally. It hinges completely on context, on shared understanding, on cultural fluency, which makes it, a huge potential minefield, especially if you're, say, learning the ropes in a new place or a new culture.
Exactly. I think we all kind of feel what's funny with our friends, but then you try and put that into an email or use it at work or talk to someone from a different generation and poof, it just vanishes. Or worse, it backfires.
Right.
So today's mission for you listening is really to get past those simple dictionary definitions. We want to give you the tools, the framework to understand the context, the power stuff going on, the actual linguistic skill needed. Not just to tell a joke, but to get what it might do.
Yeah, we're aiming to provide that framework, understanding the ethics of it, clarifying the different types like irony and sarcasm, which always get mixed up, and giving you some real practical ways to get better at reading the room, boosting that humor radar, as we're calling it.
Okay, let's dive right in then. The biggest confusion, the one everyone stumbles over. Sarcasm versus irony. We need to nail down the basic rule here because people use them interchangeably all the time.
They really do, and it causes so much confusion. But linguistically, it's actually, well, pretty clear once you see the relationship. The foundational rule, the key takeaway from the sources is this: all sarcasm. It's a type of verbal irony.
Okay.
But crucially, not all irony is sarcastic. Sarcasm is basically irony with, well, with an attitude, with a specific, sharp purpose.
That's a really helpful distinction. So sarcasm is the subset. Let's define that first then. That specific kind of aggressive mechanism. Sarcasm is saying the opposite of what you mean.
Right.
But it's not just saying the opposite, is it? There's more to it.
Exactly. The function is the key. Sarcasm isn't just contradiction for its own sake. It's specifically designed to mock someone or show you really disapprove or express contempt. It always has that edge, that bite.
An edge, yeah.
Unlike just general irony, sarcasm is always like an active choice.
Yeah.
You're using it as a tool for personal expression, and this is critical. It has to have a target.
Yeah.
A person, a situation, an idea you're deliberately trying to cut down or criticize.
Okay, so if I'm stuck in a painfully long meeting, 3 hours over schedule, and I mutter, wow, I really wish this meeting would never end. The meaning isn't just the opposite, I want this to end. It's also loaded with my, sheer exhaustion and annoyance. It's got that aggressive undertone, even if I say it quietly.
Precisely. And think about how we signal that in spoken English. It's rarely just the words, is it? It's the other stuff.
The tone of voice.
Exactly. Those paralinguistic cues. Your pitch might change. You might drag out a vowel sound. Really wish or adopt this overly bright, almost fake enthusiastic tone that clashes completely with reality.
Ah, right.
The listener's brain has to do this double take. It hears the literal words, checks them against the situation, spots the mismatch, and then, crucially, processes your tone to figure out the real opposite meaning plus the feeling behind it.
So it takes effort from the listener.
It does. That cognitive load, that decoding process, is partly why sarcasm can feel so sharp. You're making the listener work to understand your contempt.
Okay, so that's sarcasm irony with intent, with a target, often delivered with specific vocal cues. Irony itself, then, is bigger, broader.
Much broader. And often it has nothing to do with anyone saying anything or having any specific intent. Irony is fundamentally about the contrast, that gap between what you expect to happen and what actually happens. Reality playing a trick, almost.
And it comes in different flavors, right?
Right. 3 main types. The most common one we bump into is situational irony.
Situational irony, that's when the situation itself is just inherently ironic. Like the universe cracking a joke, no speaker needed.
Exactly that. The classic textbook example. A fire station burning down.
Right.
The expectation is total. This is the place designed, equipped, staffed specifically to fight fire. It should be immune. The reality, it's destroyed by the very thing it exists to conquer. That gap between expectation and reality is huge. It's inherent in the situation. Nobody needs to comment for it to be ironic.
It just is. Okay. And then there's dramatic irony. That sounds more like something from literature or movies.
It is. Dramatic irony is all about a difference in knowledge. Specifically, when the audience or the reader knows something really important that a character inside the story doesn't know.
Okay. So we, the audience, are in on a secret the character isn't.
Precisely. Think Greek tragedies. We often know from the start that the hero is doomed, marching towards some terrible fate, but they have no idea. They're acting blissfully ignorant, as the saying goes.
Or, like you mentioned, the classic horror movie scene. We see the killer hiding in the closet, but the character walks towards the closet, maybe humming a little tune, totally unaware. The tension comes from us knowing the danger they don't know.
Exactly. The irony is purely in that gap, that imbalance of information. So if you line them up, sarcasm is deliberate, spoken irony meant to sting. Situational irony is the environment subverting expectations. Dramatic irony is the audience knowing more than the character. Only sarcasm needs a speaker actively deploying the irony.
That clarifies things a lot, which naturally leads us to the ultimate case study in getting irony wrong.
Oh, you have to mention it.
Alanis Morissette, the song Ironic. It's become this cultural shorthand for the confusion itself.
It really has. It's fascinating. The song was huge. Everyone knows it. But linguistically, most of the examples she gives, well, they aren't actually ironic in the strict sense.
Like rain on your wedding day.
Right. Or a traffic jam when you're already late.
Yeah.
These things are definitely unfortunate. They're bad luck, maybe annoying coincidences.
But not ironic. Why not?
Because the expectation isn't profoundly subverted in the right way. Rain is always a possibility, especially on an outdoor wedding day. Traffic jams happen. It's inconvenient, sad maybe, but not a fundamental clash between expectation and reality in the way the fire station example is.
So for the wedding day to be truly ironic, it would need more. Like, maybe you spent your life savings on designing this incredibly high-tech, completely weatherproof indoor venue, guaranteed by engineers to withstand anything, and then on the wedding day, a sprinkler pipe bursts inside and floods the place. That gets closer.
That's much closer. Now you have a specific expectation. Total dryness, engineered safety, being utterly defeated by the very thing it was meant to prevent. Water damage, just from an internal source. That's the kind of deep reversal situational irony often has.
Okay. But the song itself, there's another layer, right? The sources mentioned a kind of meta-irony.
Yes, and this is where it gets really interesting. The real irony, the ultimate irony of the song Ironic,
It's the song itself.
is the song itself. The fact that a song called Ironic, which is trying to explain irony to millions of people, contains hardly any actual examples of irony, well, that is deeply ironic. It accidentally became the perfect illustration of the very confusion it was describing.
Wow. So the public's misuse of the word kind of created the ironic situation the song lives within.
Exactly. The song's existence and its content became a meta-commentary on how people misunderstand the concept. It's a brilliant, if unintentional, layer.
That really shows how tricky this is. Even when you try to define it, context and how people use language can twist it into something new. It underlines why just knowing the definition isn't enough.
Absolutely not. And that foundation understanding sarcasm is irony with intent, while irony itself is broader, is crucial as we move into, well, much riskier territory.
Section 2, the workplace context. If humor with friends is like playing catch, humor at work feels more like navigating a minefield.
That's a perfect analogy. The stakes shoot way up. Suddenly you've got power dynamics, hierarchy, professional expectations, much less shared history or trust. The whole risk calculation changes.
Yeah, a sarcastic comment to a friend might get you an eye roll.
Right. But that same tone in an email to your boss,
Right.
or a poorly timed ironic remark in a performance review, that could be, genuinely damaging to your career. You just don't have that buffer of friendship and shared understanding.
And this is where people often misuse irony, isn't it? They think they're being cleverly ironic, but it lands as something else entirely.
It lands as passive-aggressive sarcasm. That's the trap. People often try to criticize something, maybe a company policy or a manager's decision, without wanting the direct confrontation that just saying it clearly would involve.
So they mask it.
They mask the criticism with what they think is wit. They say the opposite, assuming, oh, they'll get that I'm being ironic, that I mean the reverse.
But the other person doesn't have the context, or maybe the relationship isn't close enough.
Precisely. The recipient hears the words, might even spot the contradiction, but they don't have that deep context or, frankly, the emotional investment to decode it generously. They don't default to, clever irony. They often default to sensing the hostility.
So they skip the irony decoding step and just hear the aggression.
They hear the aggression, the negativity, the contempt, and because it wasn't direct, it feels sneaky. Passive-aggressive, an indirect attack rather than a witty observation.
And this problem, this failure of context, it gets amplified hugely when we take away the face-to-face element, right? Written communication, email, Slack, Teams.
Oh, massively. You strip away, 80% of the meaning? That's what some studies suggest for sarcasm. You lose the tone of voice, the facial expression, the little gestures, the posture. All those nonverbal cues we rely on are gone.
So you're just left with the words on the screen.
Just the words. And you're essentially gambling that the reader shares your exact understanding of the situation, your exact sense of humor, and will correctly infer your intended tone and emotional state from plain text.
That sounds incredibly risky. You're asking a lot of the reader.
It is asking a lot.
Yeah.
And it leads to some, spectacular misfires. We talked about that perfect anecdote from the sources, the classic example of written sarcasm going wrong in an office.
Ah, yes. The infamous confusing email incident. Legendary.
Truly. So a manager sends out this incredibly dense, badly written email about some new procedure. Nobody can make head nor tail of it.
Okay. Standard Tuesday.
Right. And one employee, probably quite frustrated, hits reply all and writes just one line. Couldn't be clear.
Okay. Dripping with sarcasm, meaning obviously this is total gibberish.
That was the clear intent, using that contradiction for maximum sarcastic effect.
A manager didn't get it.
Not even slightly. The manager, probably stressed, maybe a bit oblivious, operating under the assumption that professional communication is usually direct and sincere, took it at face value.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. The manager replied also to everyone something like, "Great. Glad someone understands it. Please proceed based on the instructions."
Wow. Just, wow. The employee must have wanted the floor to swallow them whole.
The entire team just froze, you can imagine. It's the perfect storm of failed decoding. The manager assumed clarity, missed the sarcasm completely, and inadvertently endorsed the employee's criticism as understanding.
It shows how easily ambiguity sinks the ship in writing.
Absolutely. And think about adding cultural differences on top of that. In some cultures, directing any kind of irony or sarcasm, even veiled, toward someone senior, that's not witty. That's seen as deeply disrespectful, maybe even insubordinate.
So if you're working with international teams, the risk multiplies again. What's funny, banter in one place could be a major offense in another.
Exactly. The variability is huge. So the bottom line really has to be, in professional writing, clarity trumps cleverness almost every time. If you can't guarantee the tone will land correctly, and you usually can't in text just be direct, avoid the sarcastic gamble.
That seems like very sound advice. Okay, so we've seen how context can make humor fail, especially at work and in writing. Let's flip that. How can we use humor successfully to actually build connections, create camaraderie?
Right, moving from the pitfalls to the art form. This brings us to maybe the single most important ethical guideline for using humor in any social setting, work or otherwise.
Golden rule.
The golden rule, always punch up, never punch down. It's a simple phrase, but it captures a really crucial understanding of power dynamics in humor. It's about who your target is relative to you.
Okay, let's unpack that. Punching up, what does that mean in practice?
Punching up means aiming your humor at people or things that have more power, status, or authority than you or your immediate group. You're targeting the establishment, the system, the boss, the big corporation, the abstract, frustrating thing.
You're aiming at the Goliath, basically.
Precisely. It's about challenging the status quo, maybe poking fun at bureaucracy, or like the example we discussed earlier, joking about how incredibly slow the company's outdated IT system is.
Right. Everyone hates the slow IT system. It's a shared frustration.
Exactly. The IT system is this powerful, impersonal force that affects everyone. By making fun of it, you're creating the users against them, the frustrating system. It builds solidarity based on that shared experience. You're punching up at the system.
Okay, that makes sense. It creates an instant in-group feeling. So punching down is the opposite.
It's the exact opposite, and it's where humor can turn nasty.
Yeah.
Punching down means targeting people who are in a weaker, more vulnerable, or less powerful position than you are.
So sticking with the IT example, punching up is joking about the slow system itself. Punching down would be...
Punching down would be making fun of the new intern who's really struggling to figure out how to use that slow, confusing system.
Ah, okay. You're targeting the individual who lacks power and is already having a hard time instead of the system causing the problem.
Exactly, and that's why the ethical core here is really about empathy. Good humor, connecting humor, shouldn't make people feel singled out, attacked, or excluded because they lack the status, knowledge, or social protection that you have. When you target vulnerability like that, it stops being humor.
It becomes
bullying.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. You're using your relative power, maybe your experience, your position, your confidence, to reinforce hierarchy, to put someone else down. Instead of leveling the playing field, you're tilting it further.
So punching up unites the group against a powerful target, while punching down isolates a vulnerable individual within the group. It really signals what kind of person you are, doesn't it? Whether you build bridges or walls.
Absolutely. It sends a huge social signal. Humor can be this amazing bonding agent, but only if people feel safe. Punching up generally feels safe for the group because the threat or the target is external or powerful. Punching down, though, creates anxiety. It tells everyone else in the group, hey, you could be next. It erodes trust.
That point about psychological safety is key, and this need to constantly read the room, understand power, and adapt ethically. It ties right into the next challenge, how humor changes so fast across generations.
Oh, the generational humor gap is real, and it seems to be widening faster than ever. Humor is so tied to the specific values, anxieties, technologies, and frankly, the shared cultural knowledge of a particular time. What's hilarious or cutting edge to one generation can seem completely baffling, or cringe, as they say, to another.
I definitely feel that sometimes. I'll see a meme or a TikTok video my younger relatives find hilarious, and I honestly feel like I need an instruction manual just to figure out the joke. It often seems totally surreal or random.
You've hit on some key features of a lot of current Gen Z humor, especially the stuff born online. It is often surreal, absurdist, and incredibly self-referential. It doesn't follow that old set-up punchline structure. It's built on layers upon layers of references.
So it's not just one joke, it's like A joke about another joke that references a viral video from 2 years ago, all presented through some weird filter.
Pretty much. To really get some of these jokes like a deep-fried meme or a very specific TikTok trend, you almost need this deep encyclopedic knowledge of recent internet history. One source called it needing a PhD in internet history.
Wow.
If you don't recognize the original audio clip or the meme format it's parodying or the specific way the text is deliberately misspelled, the whole thing just collapses. The absurdity itself is often the point, but the barrier to entry for understanding why it's absurd is really high.
So it works as this super efficient but also super exclusive in-group language. If you decode it, you belong. If you don't, you're clearly an outsider.
Exactly. And that intense layering and reliance on niche digital culture stands in pretty stark contrast to what younger generations often label, sometimes dismissively, as boomer humor.
Which is seen as what? More straightforward.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah.
More straightforward, often observational, sometimes relying on broader, more established stereotypes about daily life, marriage, work, etc.
Like the classic "take my wife, please" kind of joke.
No.
We're complaining about golf.
Exactly. Those archetypal jokes, the "I hate my wife" trope, the "my boss is an idiot" routines, they tend to be structurally simpler. They rely on sort of widely understood, maybe even slightly tired social scripts. They often lack that self-aware, meta-commentary, multi-layered irony that defines so much online humor today.
And younger people often see those older jokes as dated, maybe even problematic now, because the underlying assumptions about gender roles, for instance, feel old-fashioned or even offensive.
That's a big part of it. The social values the joke was built on might have shifted. What was once seen as a relatable complaint about, say, marriage, might now be viewed as misogynistic or just lazy joke writing. The societal ground has moved, so the joke doesn't land anymore or lands badly.
It reflects an evolution in what we find funny because society itself evolves. Older humor often confirmed existing stereotypes. Newer humor seems more likely to critique them or turn the humor inward onto the self.
It's a good way to put it. There's often more self-deprecation, more absurdity, more critique of the structures themselves.
So what's the takeaway for someone learning English or navigating these cultural differences? Do you need to become fluent in surreal TikTok memes to connect?
Not necessarily fluent in creating them, no. The key is achieving what we call cultural fluency. It's about recognition, not necessarily participation or even enjoyment. Meaning, you don't have to personally find every meme hilarious or understand every single reference. But you need to recognize that these different styles, the complex layered meme, the simple observational joke, the pun, whatever, are all legitimate, functioning ways that large groups of people communicate and connect.
So understand the function even if you don't get the specific joke.
Exactly. Understand why it might be funny to that group. Recognize it as a valid form of communication for them. That's the core of cultural fluency. It's about understanding the landscape, not necessarily liking everything in it.
That shifts the goal from having to be funny in every style to just being able to understand the different styles. That feels much more achievable.
Okay, let's push into the really edgy territory now. The stuff that tests the absolute limits. Dark humor.
Yes. The million-dollar question, as you called it earlier. Where is that line between funny and just plain offensive? Dark humor lives right on that border.
By definition, it tackles the tough stuff, right? Death, illness, tragedy, disaster. Exactly. Taboo subjects. It pushes boundaries deliberately. And that inherent risk is part of its power, but also its danger.
For some people, though, it's more than just edgy jokes. It serves a real purpose.
For many, yes. Psychologically, dark humor can be a really important coping mechanism. It's a way to confront something overwhelming, the fear of death, the pain of loss, the absurdity of suffering, and gain a tiny bit of control over it by, well, laughing at it.
How does that work? By making it absurd?
Partly, yes. By injecting absurdity or finding grim irony in a terrible situation, you can sort of distance yourself from the raw emotion for a moment. You externalize the fear. There's even a theory, terror management theory, that suggests we use various cultural tools, including humor, to manage the deep anxiety we all have about our own mortality. Dark humor fits right into that laughing in the face of the abyss, so to speak.
It's a way to process the unprocessable by finding a moment of levity, even if it's grim.
Right. But, and this is a huge but, the risk is enormous because it depends entirely on shared context, timing, and the emotional state of the listener. For someone who is actively grieving or traumatized or just doesn't share that coping style, the same joke isn't cathartic.
It's just cruel.
It can feel incredibly cruel, dismissive, or offensive. It can trivialize their pain.
Yeah.
Which brings us back, yet again, to the absolute necessity of knowing your audience and setting.
Non-negotiable.
Absolutely. You might share a very dark joke with a very close friend who's been through something similar, and you both understand it's a way of coping. That can be bonding, cathartic.
But try that same joke in the office kitchen or at a dinner party with people you don't know well.
You're playing with fire. You risk causing genuine, lasting hurt. The potential for pain is just too high when you don't have that deep trust and shared context. In mixed company, dark humor is usually best avoided. The risk outweighs the potential reward.
The setting dictates everything. Okay, from the dark emotional edge, let's swing to the complete opposite end. Something purely about language itself. The intellectual exercise of wordplay. Puns.
Ah, puns. The Marmite of humor, as someone once said. You either love them or you absolutely hate them.
And the reaction is often that groan, right? That audible groan.
Which is often part of the fun, isn't it? The groan is almost a compliment. It's the audience acknowledging the cleverness, the linguistic trick, while simultaneously signaling a kind of playful resistance to having their language bent like that.
It's a social ritual around the pun, but you're saying there's more to it. That puns are actually a sign of high-level skill.
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
Especially for language learners. Think about what it takes to understand, let alone create, a good pun. It's not about contradicting meaning, like sarcasm. It's about manipulating the very structure of the language.
What kind of manipulation?
Well, puns rely on semantic ambiguity. They usually play on homonyms, words spelled and sounding the same but with different meanings, like bat the animal and bat the hitting implement. Or homophones, words that sound the same but have different spellings and meanings, like night and night.
So you have to know multiple meanings of a word or multiple words that sound the same.
And you have to hold those different meanings in your head at the same time, and then find a context where both meanings can cleverly collide or resonate within a single phrase or sentence. You're forcing two separate ideas together just using sound or spelling.
That requires a really deep grasp of vocabulary, pronunciation, different definitions, context. It's like linguistic gymnastics.
It really is. Someone who can land a good, complex pun isn't just using language to communicate. They're playing with the language. They're showing a mastery where the language itself becomes a toy, a source of intellectual wit. It signals advanced cognitive flexibility and a deep familiarity with the nuances of English.
So maybe we shouldn't groan so loudly next time. Achieving pun mastery is like a secret badge of honor for language fluency.
Perhaps. Or maybe the groan is the highest praise.
Okay, but even the best linguistic gymnast, the most context-aware comedian sometimes, messes up. Which brings us to the final, unavoidable part of this. What happens when the joke just completely bombs?
The sound of silence. Or worse, the awkward cough. Our sources call that silence after a failed joke the worst sound in the world.
I think we've all been there. It's that feeling of pure agonizing tension. You tried to create connection, and instead you've created this void. You feel totally exposed.
It's paralyzing vulnerability. The instinct is just to freeze, maybe blush, wish the ground would swallow you whole.
So what's the strategy? For someone listening, maybe they tried a bit of sarcasm or a pun or some generational humor they thought would land, and crickets, just dead air. What do you actually do?
The recovery move is crucial. Way more important than the initial joke, in fact. The absolute key is don't freeze. Don't ignore it. You have to acknowledge the failure right there. Right then.
Own the awkwardness.
Own it completely. You need to break that tension yourself. Laughing at yourself is often the best way.
How does that help the situation psychologically?
Well, when your joke fails, the audience feels awkward for you. They're sharing your embarrassment, holding that tension. When you step back and immediately comment on the failure, say something simple like, well, that didn't land, or, oof, rough crowd, mainly me, or just laugh at yourself. You shift the focus.
You make the failed joke the new topic instead of just letting the awkwardness hang there.
Exactly. You instantly become part of the audience observing the failure, rather than being the isolated source of the awkwardness. You're showing self-awareness. You're showing you can read the room, even if your initial joke choice suggests you misread it slightly.
It proves you're not oblivious. You saw it bomb too.
Right. It demonstrates resilience, social intelligence, and it takes the pressure off everyone else. That little bit of self-deprecating humor about your own failure is often much funnier and certainly safer than the original joke might have been. It can actually win people over more effectively.
So a graceful retreat, owning the miss, can actually build more respect than if the joke had just landed okay.
Often, yes. It reinforces that communication isn't just about delivering lines. It's about connection, awareness, and adapting to the response.
That's a great practical tip. So this has been a really comprehensive deep dive. We've gone from the nitty-gritty of irony versus sarcasm, through the dangers of workplace humor and written jokes, the ethics of punching up versus down, a whole generational divide, the edges of dark humor and puns.
And finally, how to recover when it all goes wrong.
It really shows just how multi-layered humor is. It's this constant negotiation of culture, context, personality, language, power.
It really is profoundly complex. And the ultimate takeaway, I think, isn't about memorizing joke formulas. It's about cultivating that humor radar. Keep listening. Keep observing how others use humor. Notice what lands and what doesn't, and constantly recalibrate based on who you're talking to and where you are.
Because ultimately, humor isn't just about getting laughs, is it? It's about something deeper.
It's about connection. At its best, humor is one of the most powerful ways we build bridges, show empathy, and navigate the complexities of being human together.
Which brings us back perfectly to that ethical core we talked about, the final thought.
Exactly. If there's one thing to hold on to from all of this, it's probably this. The primary goal is connection. And the best, most skillful humor is almost always underpinned by kindness. A joke shouldn't succeed at the expense of making someone feel small, excluded, or hurt. That ethical awareness, that restraint, that's the real mark of someone who truly understands the power of humor.
A fantastic place to leave it. Thank you for navigating this very complex code with us today.
My pleasure. This is a great discussion. We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.